if you misbehave, it's going to be straight red card. None of this. Straight red card. So we will continue from what we have discussed yesterday. I want to tell you this again and again. First of all, Buddhism in general, especially Mahayana Buddhism, and then of course, most especially Vajrayana Buddhism, is really vast and deep. You have to really go outside the sort of box to really hear these and appreciate these teachings. And especially what the specific subject regarding guru and student relationships. These are really difficult subject, with something that we cannot cover within a few days. And probably we can talk a little bit intellectually, but when it comes to the practice, then it's altogether different matter. But hopefully, I'm managing to, hopefully this time we are managing to at least have a healthy doubt and some sort of openness. Doubt and belief, these two are sort of the most fundamental ingredient of the path. Both are necessary. To make a coffee, you need the actual coffee bean crushed, all of that, but you need also water. Belief is very important, yes, but doubt is also very important. And then they intertwine many times. Belief crushes the doubt crushes the belief. If you can only imagine, if you can only fathom the 10th Bhumi Bodhisattva's last stage of his Bhumi, let's say he's about to get enlightenment this afternoon, the doubt he faces, we are talking something unfathomable, So, to talk about this is not that easy, but keep space in your, in your being, in your system. Be patient. Actually, there's even a word in dharma, michevi chola zepatopa. Michewa means basically unborn, non-arising. Shunyata. Zepa actually means patience. So when we talk about patience in Mahayana Buddhism, especially Mahayana Buddhism, we talk about lots of different categories of patience. The highest patience is the patience to hear, understand, digest the shunyata. This is a difficult one, as we have been talking yesterday. So, and again, because there's so much information, and I just make some notes here, so it's not going to be, there's not really going to be a thread. It's not going to be cohesive. So whatever I bump into, whichever the note, I'm getting confused myself. So please excuse this one. Yesterday we were talking about the relative truth and ultimate truth a little bit. I think I didn't do a good job, but it's going to be difficult to do a good job, that one, because it's a really difficult subject in one way. But it's an important one. Oh, and what is important for you to know is that in Buddha Dharma, both are equally accepted. Relative truth is not looked down, ultimate truth is not cherished or venerated more than relative truth. They are equally, important. And the strange thing is this: when we talk about relative truth and ultimate truth, we are only talking during the relative truth. This is the thing. Because even the idea of relative truth and ultimate truth is only for the sake of communication. There is no such thing as relative truth and ultimate truth. It's really difficult. I said this somewhere, I think in Paris. Recently I was talking with one of my Indian friends. How the Indians are, we are argumentative Indians. And we were talking about, power of paradox. Paradox. And we were discussing, and he was saying that probably West does not really know or have the full meaning of paradox. If you do, okay, you have the meaning, but you don't really have the means how to use this paradox. Now, appreciating the paradox, the world of paradox, fully appreciating the world of paradox is what Buddha Dharma really gives us this path, especially in the vajrayana. This is the most, and you may think, why do we need a paradox? Do you want magic? If you want a magic, then you need to appreciate paradox. Just briefly to explain, what is paradox I'm talking here? It's, paradox I think is something to do with having a seemingly two opposition, right? But actually they are not, kind of thing, right? Paradox. It's a bit like this. It's there, but it's not there. Like the best example I think I could think about is movie. When you watch Shape of Water, it's there, and you're so involved and you love, you are crying and you are involved and you are getting all of this, but when your bladder is full, you have no qualms of going to the toilet. You know why? Because it's there, but it's not there. That's why you have the guts to go to the toilet. This is called liberation. Liberation from not knowing, liberation from knowing that it's there, but it's not there. You understand? Now, this kind of wisdom, this kind of knowledge does not exist when it comes to our day-to-day life. And what Buddha Dharma in general is saying is, this cup is there, but it's not there. It's so difficult to accept. Yes, intellectually it's sort of okay, but emotionally very difficult to accept. On top of that, when the Vajrayana people, these Tantric people says, oh, I have a glass full of Mamaki Dakini. Oh, you go bananas. What are we talking about here now? You understand? So, again, when we talk about a paradox, we are talking about a relative truth and, ultimate truth, and really knowing how to appreciate and how to dwell in. And Buddhism really has the very detailed, and not just one path, so many different paths. I know one single path such as mindfulness is taking, people are a little bit interested in this, mindfulness. I don't know, I guess for many reasons. It's economical, so to speak, because you just sit. It's kind of very politically correct thing to do, because when you are sitting, you are not harming others, and the others are safe from you, so to speak. Stuff like this. But if the West, not just West, is also, if Buddhism get deprived into one technique called mindfulness, what a loss. Such a loss. Buddhism, especially in the Vajrayana, like going to pilgrimage. That's just another amazing method, It is as beautiful and as magical and as, as exciting and as, scary and as, blissful and as painful, and is rewarding and very treacherous, and these are something you can't be shunned off as a superstitious thing, old age, backward, whatever, sort of Tibetan thing to do or an Asian thing to do. It's a loss. Your Vajrayana master can say to you, if you are his disciple, okay, I want you to go to Holy Land tour, pilgrimage, every day to Bond Street. That's your practice. And on top of that, you have Vajrayana Tantric master says, okay, from now on, I want you to completely keep secret of Bond Street. You are not to tell anyone there is something called Bond Street. This is just ridiculous. Everyone knows there's a Bond Street. But it doesn't matter. This is your path. Yes, as crazy as it sounds, this is the path you are consciously, soberly choosing. There's so much, beautiful wisdom and so much wealth, so much richness, so much nuances, so much hue and color and shape. Really, I beg all my fellow practitioners, let us not deprive ourselves to one or two methods that just because this is more politically correct, just because it's more economical, just because it looks nice. Because, meditation looks really nice. The sight of the zafu is so beautiful, and it's so... So, okay, there's a question, there's been a lot of questions. I'm sorry I will not be able to go through all the questions, but there's one question, and I think it's related to what I wanted to talk today, but the question is something to do with something like this. Could you please talk about what pure perception means in light of the fact that we were taught in the Rigpa to see whatever Sogyal Rinpoche did as pure? Some students interpret this to mean that everything he did was right or beneficial on a relative level. If he did something that injured students, they said seeing purely meant he wasn't really harming them, etc., etc. And the question is a bit long, so I will try to explain what is pure perception. It's a big subject again. First, I will give you an example. I will borrow it from Nagarjuna, a great Mahayana commentator. And I think, he said, let's say here I'm showing a magic, okay? Performing, rabbit coming from my cup, whatever. And you are these kids who really like completely, wow, rabbit coming from the, cup, all of that. That, okay, that's one. Number two, myself, magician. And maybe my assistants, who helps me do this. They know this is not really happening. You understand? But there's still an act of doing this. That's number two. Okay? Now, there are people out there, nothing happened. They don't know what's going on here. It never occurred in their head. Yeah? Three. That's the third. The first one is samsaric experience. Remember, you actually believe it, rabbit coming. The second one is a yogic path dwellers experience. They sort of know it's not there, but they are also involved with their trick. You understand? The third person who's out there, the Buddha. Nothing happened. Yeah? This is the sort of the framework. And then let's explain the pure perception a little bit. It's a really big subject. First, to talk about a pure perception, we need to talk about a perception. And fundamentally, what we are talking about is that English have an expression, ugly is in the eyes of the beholder. Is that the expression? Oh, really? Okay. Okay. Beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. That's it. That essentializes the Chittamata and the Madhyamika philosophy that everything is your projection. But in this case, not just ugly, not just beauty, short, long, everything, time. Just imagine, I'm having a nice cup of tea with my best friend. The time goes like this. Imagine I'm in a prison. Every minute is like a 1 hour, so on and so forth. Everything is your projection, individual projection. That is the fundamental thing that you need to know before you learn what is pure perception. Please, I'm not trying to, again, bring an excuse at all, some sort of an excuse to sort of, give the responsibility to others. But this is a fact, We are talking about science, right? I mean, science of the Vajrayana or the Mahayana. This. Secondly, what you need to know is non-sultan, ne-sultateva. This is what the Tibetans say. What appears is not what it is. I think there's even an English expression, what appearance is deceiving or something like that. Isn't it? What? Yeah, appearance is deceiving. What you see, how it appears is not really what it is. You should be able to accept that one. That one is also another aspect, another very, very important ingredient of what we call pure perception. Getting higher now, okay? We are getting more sophisticated. I've already said everything is your projection. I've already said what appears is not what it is. Okay, keep in mind. Now, a little bit of a tantric flavor, let me add. Nang tong sungjuk. Appearance and what should it? I mean, the Buddhist term is emptiness, but how it appears and what it is union. But the Buddhist term, the classic Buddhist term, is how it appears and how it is inseparable. They are not one, they are not two. Like ice and water. Is ice water? No. Is water ice? No. But water is also, ice is also water, you know? It's like this. So, appearance and emptiness is union. This is a little bit more complicated for those who are not prepared, but it's a very important subject that you need to know. Now, before I go to the fourth one, and these, what I just said, are the fundamental sort of backbone of the tantric things. Have you ever gone to a tantric ritual where, vajrayana master says, Om, this, that, Om, Sobhava, something, and then they ring the bell? You can always, this mumbo jumbo, water, sprinkling, all of this. You know what the Vajrayana people are saying? Look, you and I think this is a glass of water. If there's a fish inside, they don't think it's a water. Do you want to apply democracy here? Especially those who believe in animal rights. We are going to lose surely. There's more fish than water, human beings. And not only that, even between you and me, if this water is in the washing basin, basin, you will not drink. Or if it is in the toilet, you will not drink. If it is bottled and it's sort of packaged well and with just fresh out of the fridge, you will be famished, you will be thirsty. You understand? So, this is what the Vajrayana says. If we are allowed to think this is water, this is home, this is that, this is this, why can't the tantric practitioners think that this is a mamaki dakini? Dakini, I know, again, another phenomena that is so misinterpreted and so hijacked here and there. It's always dakini is some sort of a beautiful, sexy woman. Absolutely not true. I don't know, maybe I shouldn't speak this, but I'm thinking of making a film about Dakini. Yeah. But the fundamental Dakini is so close to you. You have it right now in front of you. Closer than your nose, closer than your eyelashes. But you are missing it all the time. But this is what the tantric people always say. Okay, this is too simple. You don't get it, do you? Because it's too simple. Let's make it complicated. This is one of the dakini. Fire is the dakini. Wind is the dakini. So the 5 elements are the 5 dakinis. So on and so forth. So this is why the tantric practitioners have this guts to use another dakini, dip into another dakini. This. No qualms. If you have the guts to use this water to drink, why can't I have the guts to have this kind of attitude? You know what I mean? Based on this kind of view. My dualistic mind is thinking, oh, should I drink this? Already I've broken a samaya. To even think, now this is not drinkable because I put a rose thing here. Yeah, that's how samaya works. So, I'm sorry, Mamaki. The fourth, we are talking about pure perception. The fourth fundamental thing you need to know about pure perception is that everyone has the Buddha nature. Even Donald Trump has Buddha nature. You need to know that. I want to say something about Guru. How, we were talking about a student devotion or student pure perception. We are talking about pure perceptions to the Guru. A Guru, when a Guru look at the student, this is the attitude the Guru is supposed to have. Let's say you are a gold maker, goldsmith, or you're a gold merchant or whatever. And then you go to, I don't know, some place, gold mine, and then you'll see ore, with all the, dirt. What is your attitude? If you are a good gold merchant, it's as good as you got a kilo of a polished gold, isn't it? As good as. It's not. You will not have it. Oh, this looks dirty. This doesn't shine. This is not like beautiful. You will not get rid of it. That's the Tantric master's attitude towards the student. If the Tantric master, not only the Tantric masters, even the Bodhisattva masters, when they look at ignorant sentient beings, they are like famished. Here is a gold ore, right? Or they see the earrings, they see this, nose rings, they see this shimmering stuff. They don't, these really good gold merchants, they don't even see the dirt at all. They bypass. We are talking about a pure perception. So, I hope you know that really, pure perception is not really whitewashing samsara. It's not like make-believe. Pure perception practice is one of the worst news for habitual pattern. And you need this worst news for the habitual pattern if you are a spiritual practitioner. This is why we say, we look at the Guru and say, even though the Guru has the equal amount of the Guru is equal to, from the quality point of view, to the Buddha, for me, he or she is even more precious and kind. As I said yesterday, I think, dharma is, fairly new in the West. We still have, this is the beginning. And you have to play a very important role. You are, it didn't, when Dharma came to Tibet, it wasn't an easy ride. Oh, wow, if only you know what happened and what's happening. It's not. And at the end, Dharma always gets hijacked, by human misbehavior, culture. And what I want to say is, as Paltu Rinpoche said, Sangdel tsechik sangje ngendel korwa thachen. If you have a good connection with a qualified Vajra master, enlightenment, enlightenment within this life is guaranteed. And he said, Ngendel korwa thachen. Even if you have a bad connection with him, end of the samsara is guaranteed. This is an important statement, and this is coming from Paltu Rinpoche, who, by the way, Paltu Rinpoche said, you should read this. It's all scoldings to the lamas like myself. It's a half of the book is actually scoldings to the lamas. It's very, very... I have heard in Tibet, in the nomadic place, some nomads are very poor, they have nothing to offer, and they have no time to practice. What they do is sometimes they will go to a very, very good master's tent or house, and they will break everything, break up things, smash things, because they believe that if you have a connection to this great master, end of the samsara is guaranteed. Of course, you can laugh at all these things, but remember, paradox. No paradox, no magic. And do you want magic? I think so. I think so. Who doesn't want? And again, I'm going back to relative truth and ultimate truth. And all this pure perception business is within the context of relative truth and ultimate truth. Of course. I think one of our subject, I sort of mentioned it yesterday. What dangers are inherent in the rejection of some Buddhist teachings such as rebirth and karma? I think I've already said this yesterday, but just want to emphasize this within the context of what I've been talking this morning. A relative truth and ultimate truth. You can't forget that. This exists in the Buddhist teachings. And I will give you one more tip on this one, probably a little bit intellectual and academic. The fundamental, one of the biggest mistake that a Buddhist philosophy students, I think any philosophy students they make, they use analytical tool which is supposedly to analyze the ultimate truth. What is ultimate truth? And they think that they are actually, trying to find the ultimate truth. That's what they think. Somehow they think, but in fact, they are analyzing the relative truth. And this is a mistake. Example, if you want to see rainbow, one of the things you should do is don't go close, isn't it? Because if you go too close, illusion disappears. So if you search, if you analyze the relative truth collapses. Isn't that the purpose, you would say? No. What is the purpose then? To understand the paradoxy of the relative truth and the ultimate truth. Wow, this is taught so extensively in the Mahayana Buddhism. In fact, not just paradoxy. Paradoxy seems to have the connotation of two things seemingly opposite. Actually, in the Mahayana, 4 things. Form is emptiness, emptiness is form, form is not other than the emptiness, emptiness is not other than the form. If you know how to even appreciate this, even intellectually, I think it will change your life. So, reincarnation is like this. I know there are a lot of people, and even prominent so-called Buddhist scholars, they think that reincarnation is a Tibetan thing. I have to admit the Tibetan tulku system and the corruption within the tulku system has ruined this a little bit. But we are not talking about that kind of reincarnate tulku, reincarnation. We are talking about the actual, the relative teachings of continuity. No teachings in the Buddha, by the Buddha have said that rebirth exists ultimately. None. Chotamche milam jumatabu, nyangene debe chochang milam tabu jumatabu, nyangene debe labi milam tabu jumatabu. This is what Buddha said. All phenomena is like an illusion, like a dream, like a mirage. Even the nirvana is like a dream, like an illusion, like a mirage. Even if there's something more amazing than the nirvana, even that is an illusion, and so on and so forth. You have to know that. Some people have written a book like Buddhism Without Belief. Fantastic. Exactly. Buddhism has no belief, but they say no reincarnation. That's a contradiction. If you say there is no reincarnation, that's a belief. If you say there is a reincarnation, also, relatively, fish can swim, and he has the individual rights to think this is a home. And we have a right to think this is water. Coexist. There has never been, thankfully, we don't speak their language and they don't understand our language, so it's kind of, even though we destroyed them a lot. So, yes, teacher has to have a pure perception towards the student. Teacher's job is to free the students from the cause of suffering. Teacher's job is not to, assist the student to enjoy and strengthen the samsaric root. It's a difficult job. It is a job that has the most, job hazard, is it? Job hazard? It's really, really, how many people, Tibetan Lamas, how many Tibetans, how many, Bhutanese, Sikkimese, Nepalese, families want their children to become what? Tulku Rinpoche. How many now in the West wants to proclaim themselves as teacher? This alone tells us something that they don't really know. If you only know the teacher's job, it's a really bad job. It's not a good job. Wow. Tselen Natso Rangdol, one of the great Nyingmapa masters, even have a prayer, few pages, going on and on about, may I never, ever reborn as a teacher. Especially a famous teacher. But having said all of this, as much as, Guru has to be brave, Guru should not be, concerned by praise or blame or popularity or political correctness. This is what I've been trying to tell so-called my students who are, I think they have a karmic debt with me, actually, and they're paying karmic debt. And I've been telling them, look, chances of me sort of abusing you physically and all of that, I can't really promise, but it's a bit slim, because not because I'm compassionate and kind and I have so much wisdom, but the opposite, because I'm selfish, because I actually care about popularity, I care about fame. I don't want, and also attention. I don't want to lose my students, I don't want them think that I want to be famous for, this, compassionate, smiling man. This, really is good for my market. It's, but I pray that I have the courage to really pull a rug out of my people who have really put everything. I have to say, it's one of the most beautiful sights. I don't know whether people know this. Is sometimes people come, especially in the West, they come very nervous. They want to tell me that they want to be my student. And then the nervousness, and their hands are sweating, and they're stuttering, and they're fumbling, and all of this. I appreciate this because it's a big job. I don't know whether the lamas even realize this. In Tibetan situation, because there's a cultural thing, so it really doesn't matter. I told you, remember? Like in East Bhutan, very East Bhutan, many people revere me and prostrate to me and all of that. Why? Because they are student of my grandfather. That's it. But the Guru has to have this courage to really also pull the rug. But, as I've said again and again, Guru has the responsibility to not to burn the seed of devotion and the bodhicitta and the love and compassion. If that gets burned, it's primarily Guru's responsibility. We need to know this. And I think I've already said, Guru really is nothing to do with the hierarchy. Please know this. I think when I go back home, to India, I will have a problem. But, really, it's sometimes mind-boggling. The Tibetan Lamas, so much into the words like His Holiness, His Eminence. How many His Holiness are there now? There's so much, so many. And these are not even, this is a Christian term. And I've told, and I think I've already said, to be a tantric master and the head of a monastery and the head of a foundation is two different things. Similarly, this is something I have forgotten yesterday. I've also just pop up in my mind. To be a tantric student and to be a manager of a monastery or a dharma center or a, disciples or whatever, those staff, those two are different. And it's a difficult job. I have a sympathy with all these people who are running dharma centers, who seemingly are, closer to the teacher or whatever. It's a difficult job because, especially, I have a sympathy with in the West because it's still new and you don't know what to do. Obey, disobey, especially, if there's totally, banana going on, you don't know what to do. I have even been asked many times, like when we are having meetings, like, when we are running like me, when I'm making film, and some of my students misunderstanding, like this. Am I allowed to criticize you? You understand? Yeah, this happens a lot. And the, human emotion it's very fragile. Even I tell them, yes, please, criticize me for my sake, for my good film. There's always a little bit of, really? Should I really criticize? I think this happens. I think I shared this with a Sangha member, and I want to share this with you. I have requested Dzongsar Khyentse Rinpoche to write a Guru Yoga personally for me, his Guru Yoga. And it's about 2 pages. The end sentence is this. Solwa tabi yudang yuchender tui jitundebi changshupsho. And this really is important. He said, in the text, may I realize that there is no one to supplicate to, and there's nobody who is doing the supplication. And finally, may I actualize the wisdom mind of the Guru and the wisdom mind of myself are just one. Do you want to go through some questions, maybe?
Shouldn't the vajrayana include a system of checks and balances to prevent vajrayana teachers from physically and mentally abusing their students?
Yes, you can. It's not as if there isn't. There is volumes and volumes of the Vinaya, Bodhisattva yana teachings on really. Again, please, you have to be really patient and there is so many books to read, so many information regarding this. There is a lot. And they are so in detail, so detailed. Can't go more than that. I mean, I was talking with some lawyer about the Vinaya system, and even some of these modern lawyers, they said, wow, they were very impressed. It's very, very detailed. For instance, like I will tell you, remember I said one yesterday about downloading a movie? Finished. You are. Stuff like this. And the measurement. It's also very, very, it's not like outdated. It's always very, very up to date, I would say. Like how big amount, what's the minimum? A lunch or dinner's cost of that time and that place. That's why I asked, what is the lunch cost for London? Yeah, if you go to, I don't know, Bangladesh, 50 pence, maybe even less, if you steal something that is worthy of that, finished. Vinaya, there's a Vinaya, there's a vajrayana, Bodhisattvayana, there's a Mahayana. Yes, why not? With a good motivation, if people want to do it, please do it. But it's not. Don't think that it's not there. It is there, and also don't think that that's going to help. I don't know. Many people, few years ago, people even talked about how about creating some sort of a guru guild. Guru guild? What is it, guru? Someone who can give you the license of, Not a good idea. And also democratically elect a guru. Not a good idea. You already have a Trump. If there's a democratic system of electing guru, you will have me. Worse than Trump. I'm a Gemini. Geminis are known for being able to sell ice cube to Eskimos. Do you really want to have that kind of guru elected? Systems is never good. It's never perfect. Corruptible. But I think the study, critical analysis, transparency, all this will do the job. And I think, I was talking about how we don't have these great masters whom we in awe of. In the past, we used to have these great masters. You always think you better behave because there's this master. But we don't have too much of that. I think social media is good. Exposure of this kind of thing makes the lamas think. By the way, I'm talking about not just one issue here. I'm talking about a big issue. It's not like just now. In a few years' time, there's many lamas and tulkus. And I've already said yesterday, judging from a lot of their behavior, their training, the way they think, I'm not impressed yet. So, it's like you have to demand well also. And you need to also, you can always demand movie like La La Land, and then you will get La La Land. You can also demand movie like Uncle Bunmi. I have to say this. Have you seen a movie called Uncle Bunmi, Remembering the Past Life? Yes. Fantastic. Yes. If you demand movies like that, I have another movie to share with you. Taste of Tea. You have to watch this. It's so good. There's this boy who has the urge to shit on eggs. It's fantastic. Water, shape of water, I don't know. I'm not the biggest fan, this one. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. Okay.
How can we use this seemingly adverse situation to deepen our practice of Dharma and to develop more confidence and stability in our Buddha nature?
Very good question. That is the question you need to ask. Again, first of all, the question is the answer. This question should be tattooed on your body. If you know, this is the attitude. Yes. Don't let your, temporary, emotional, sort of up and down, judge things. Because, for yourself, for the sake of sentient beings, you need to think big, you need to think long, and even individually, this is a test. When this kind of situation comes, and do you know, if you have an obstacle, that means you are doing something good. Or you are doing something. Because if you are not doing anything and if you are not doing good, that's already an obstacle. So why need any other obstacles? In the 12 deeds of the Buddha, just before the enlightenment of the Buddha, Gautama, after so many years of penance and all that, under the Bodhi tree, what happened? War, Mara, conquering the Mara, remember? Yes. Obstacle and this kind of situation is the dawn of the wisdom sun. You need to really take this chance. And how? Study, hear, contemplate, be critical, and be critical to your own critical system. You need this. Believe, not believe. Also, don't believe the reason why you don't believe. Oh yeah. I think then, wow, leaping forward. If the path doesn't have obstacles, it's like this, walking on the path. When the obstacles happens, and if you can really be resilient, it's like leaping. Please take advantage of this.
I have great devotion and gratitude towards Sogyal Rinpoche for teaching me and establishing Rigpa around the world to help guide us all. But I sometimes had doubts when I heard Rinpoche teaching in what came across to me as self-centered or egotistical. What role do these doubts have on the path? I have tried to ignore them, telling myself I'm wrong.
Okay. Again, it's very touching and very sweet, this. In Berlin, I think it was in Berlin, someone just, that would, actually, what took me surprise when someone asked me, what do you think personally about Sogyal Rinpoche? I'm not his student. I have not taken any initiation or teachings. I have no pure perceptions, and I'm not bound with this. I'm a defiled human being. I have a narrow mind, narrow projection. I have judgment about what he does and what he doesn't. There are a lot of things, but there were a lot of things that I thought, why is he doing this? I have to say. But given all this, as this person who's asking the question, Sogyal Rinpoche and the Rigpa have also done a lot of things. I would say more good things overall. You have to really, this is where you have to really be objective and sober. Just the fact that you have been introduced to some of the greatest masters of this century, I think this alone is a worthy. But of course, someone can always say, oh, this is just another, gimmick from Sogyal Rinpoche to, develop his credential and all of that. But I don't know. Many lamas are very, very possessive of their turf. They're very protective. No lamas are allowed to come into, you understand? Rigpa I have never noticed this in the Rigpa. Rigpa has always been a big vessel, platform, where so many lamas, teachers go, come, teach. And also keep in mind, barely 100 years, Buddhism in the West, and complexity of the situation. You need to think soberly, and you have to really appreciate what Rinpoche and Rigpa have done for the Dharma to grow. And of course, there is going to be obstacles, and you have to deal with it. And the students of Rinpoche, especially the older generation, they are preparing. They are ready to deal with this. And like such kind of event, what's happening right now, taking a decision to do this. Again, of course, as I said, some people may think this is just another, setup and all of that. That different projection, remember, fish and human beings, all of this. But I think there's a lot of good steps that, the organizers are taking, such as, independent inquiry and all of this. According to the country's rule and law, this needs to be rejoiced and appreciated, and be patient and not jump into the conclusion right away, positively or negatively. Maybe we take a break? Yeah. Okay. Toilet break, 10 minutes. Thank you. And actually, earlier I was reading this question from my phone. I think I got carried away by all this explanation, and probably I didn't really answer the actual question. And which is very important, and I really want to, because this is really, I think, crucial question here. And this is what I've been saying everywhere. Fundamental fault is, first of all, vajrayana have never been taught publicly. I'm repeating this again and again. And the Tibetans didn't do a good job on this one. I've said this. But it doesn't mean that now we cannot, there's no way to sort of, there is very much. So, instead of, instead of, telling a student, especially someone who is not prepared, and this student is seeing the guru doing strange, and then let's say you happen to be one of the student, telling this new student, and if this new student says, he's really strange, he's misbehaving a lot. Many times we make a big mistake bringing this vajrayana answers. You understand what I mean? It's these things need to be sorted out. Okay, you personally chose this person as your master, tantric master. What do you do between yourself and he or she is a tantric confidential thing. It's required by the Tantra. For the outside, especially a student who is not prepared and who is not even looking for the Vajrayana teachings. Probably this student is just looking for a calm and peace of mind, just want to meditate, just want to know a little bit of Buddhism. And this is what I've been saying, I really have a sympathy when people say that, Tibetan Buddhism is very cultish. I can understand, because the Tibetan lamas, their retinues are not helping this. The trumpet, the incense, the scarf, the throne, the very, very high throne, which is not even practical. If there's a fire, my God. Or an earthquake, the first person to go is the guru. All this old Tibetan habit. I don't know why the Tibetans are so into this. But that's how it is. But this is not dharma. This is a Tibetan culture. These two are two separate things. But going back to here, instead of, defending this guru, there are so many things. And someone asked me yesterday, remember, skillful means and wisdom. You don't want to put socks, help your guru to put socks in front of these people. You don't want to do this with shoelace. You don't want to, all this strange, guru-student, exhibition. You don't want to do that. As a person, you don't even, you don't, for the name of the Buddha Dharma, you don't want to act like you are a sycophant. Because you really look like an ass kisser, isn't it? And it will ruin Buddha Dharma. It ruins the Vajrayana, definitely. And so I think a good scenario is up to the Mahayana level. And I would actually go even as far as the Kriya and Charya Tantra, actually. Once you reach to the, Yoga Tantra, then it's a little bit getting more serious. Even up to probably Kriya, Charya Tantra. Yeah. If someone says, hey, your guru is misbehaving, you can just, and you can even tell. There's many actually options. Actually, this was asked actually in Berlin, and I've given answer. You can even ask this wise guru. Okay, this wise guru, and tell, hey, look, I know you are my guru, and this is individual. It's between us. But when we go out, when you misbehave, I'm going to tell my sister or my brother or my other, non-Buddhist person who is probably a little bit interested. I will tell them, when they see you misbehaving, I will just, he's just an old fart. You understand? And if he is a wise guru, that yes, do it. Really? Yes, do it. Encourage, actually. Do it. These are skillful means that we need to learn, I think. There's too much missing the cultural cue. Cultural cue? Is it? C-U-E-Q? Yeah. So much. Yeah, you don't want your non-Buddhist friend come to your master and let him touch this sweaty hand on your friend's head. Don't. This person may be very, very conscious about disease, and it's really not a nice scene, like this. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. These are really, it's not a beautiful scene, and in certain setting. So that's I think this is what I wanted to say. So I think a lot of these mistakes I'll give you an example. Tantric Khyentse Rinpoche is one of my guru. He hardly wears top shirt. He's always naked. Then every time in Nepal, every time the ambassador of Italy, ambassador of France, when they come, we always bring a shirt. So Rinpoche, you should put this. And he goes, French ambassador's coming? Okay. You know what I mean? Of course. We love this mountain-like, the appearance. But maybe the French ambassador might not enjoy looking at this. These are, I think, something important to know.
Thank you for inviting us to ask questions without fear of judgment. This is unusual in Rigpa, where people often said, "Don't stick your head above the parapet." So I had a sense of being gagged for many years. How can we create a climate where open, critical questioning and discussion is seen as healthy and is not suppressed?
I think it's already happening and happened, so maybe no need to really answer. And I think the organizers are very much wanting to do this and really, putting so much effort in this. And you should really, we should really give them a chance and see how they're going to do from now on. Rigpa has such an opportunity to be, this platform where all yanas, it would be really amazing if something like, I don't know, London Rigpa Center or a Berlin Rigpa Center suddenly have Burmese monk doing a rainy retreat. Fantastic. Stuff like this. So,
what do we do if a master has so many students he cannot have personal contact with every one of them? Is it a problem for a student not to have direct personal instructions from his own master? Is it possible to have multiple Vajrayana and Dzogchen masters? If yes, how to do Guru Yoga visualization practice?
Yeah. It's again heartfelt question, I have to say. This raises a good question. In the past, what? Telopa have maybe Naropa, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's about it. But then when it arrived in Tibet, this mass following of the Vajrayana happened. And this is where the secrecy leaked, or whatever. Secrecy is maybe not the right word, confidential practice of the Vajrayana. And it's just, it doesn't really work also, especially if the guru doesn't have the ability. And I have to say this. Okay, you can tell me I'm one of those very blind devotee, who believes in mumbo jumbo, whatever. I have witnessed with my own eyes, 16 Karmapa Rangjung Rigvidorji. He has so many people following, so many. And this was when I was quite young, 17 years old. I was in Kathmandu. Karmapa was giving an initiation. And this was my first exposure to Westerners, a lot of hippies. And I want to say something about this. You never know. Really, earlier questions, how to take this situation as way to really advance ourselves. You can, really. You can. Sometimes I even jokingly say, half jokingly, that we need to pay homage to weeds. Weeds, marijuana. Weeds have brought a lot of people into Buddhism too. I know many people. I know some of my students, met in some dingy, restaurant. I wasn't there for weeds, by the way. I didn't even know at that time, but I was there for momo. Tibetan restaurant, really, really shabby. And there's this, actually Germans, they were all. And they were for this. And somehow we end up talking, and now they're practitioner. These things happens. Anyway, there were a lot of hippies during those days. Oh, some strange ones, my goodness. I actually miss them. Somehow that whole hippie is sort of dwindling. I don't know, I don't see it. Is there any shop that sell bell bottom here in England? Is there? Normal? You can make maybe. Bell bottom days. But anyway, thousands of people, Hisonins Karmapa, and I met this Danish man, really kind of tall, dreadlock. And my English was really bad, so we really communicated really badly. But anyway, I said, why are you here? And then he took out a locket. And he's not even a Buddhist. He took out a locket, and he has this one rice with some relics in it. And he said, a year ago or something, His Holiness Karmapa came to Copenhagen or somewhere and then give a ceremony, and he just happened to be there. This man happened to be there, and he was throwing rice, and then one rice fell on his big dreadlock, and he somehow thought this is kind of interesting, so he kept it, he said. And he said, after about a few months, when he opened that casket, he saw this, he doesn't even know. He was asking me, what are these? This thing seems to be coming out from the rice. Now, if you have people like 16 Karmapa Rangchung Rigpa Dorje, yeah, then altogether different matter. But other gurus, to have lots and lots of students and to really have a Mahasandhi level of instructions is difficult. But it's doable, I think, you know. We don't have much choice now. We can still, you know, discipline ourselves, keeping it, treasure it, keeping that discipline. And in one way, it's not that difficult also. You know, Mahasandhi, especially the very, very high tantric practice, one way very difficult because it's, you know, against the duality. On the other hand, there's not many things like you have to, there's no, you know, restrictions on things like, I don't know, what you wear, what you eat, you know. So it's a doable thing. And that's part of the question whether he or she can have many other masters. I think I've already answered that yesterday. Okay.
If governments require us to formulate an ethics statement with rules and modern prohibitions against abuse of power, physical abuse, and sex between teachers and students, can that be done while still fully respecting the vajrayana?
Yes, and we must, as I have said this today, right at the beginning, a relative truth is very much part of the teachings of the Buddha. You cannot ignore that. I think it's a difficult subject, this relative truth and ultimate truth. But yes, why? Because vajrayana has 14 root vows, and many of these root vows, for instance, if you I want to be specific, this one. Okay, several things. Second most important vajrayana vow, both for the student and the master, by the way, is, all vajrayana practitioner, if you go against the words of the Buddha, all the words, including the Sharvakayana vow, you break the vajrayana vow. Keep this in mind. If you abandon love for sentient beings, that's the fourth. If you abandon bodhicitta, that's fifth. And this one, yonsu mamin semchen la samadrobo dumbayin, the seventh. For those who are not ripened and prepared, if your action, your behavior, if you are teaching, ruins their seat of the bodhicitta. You break the vajrayana vow. So, because all sentient beings counts, so the country's law, country's rule, all of this applies. Very, very important. I don't think that there is a sort of Buddhists have their own secular law that they have, It doesn't exist. I think this is another issue that you should explore on this, about, how should I say? In fact, Buddhism sort of declined because of this. Because Buddhism is really not interested, interested is not the right word. It's got, Buddhism does not even have a marriage ceremony. More likely it will have a divorce ceremony. It's all about the truth. It doesn't have these things. Well, how do you marry somebody? Like after the ceremony, throwing some flowers, say, hey, look, everything's impermanent, you will divorce tonight. You can't say like, may you live forever, whatever, all this doesn't really work. But I need to also tell you, there are practice, the vajrayana practice. You may find it difficult nowadays. Okay, for instance, the practice of wandering. Wandering. You are supposed to wander. The moment you are even familiar, you yourself, not other familiar with you yourself familiar with a street number or whatever, you are supposed to take off. Wandering, totally wandering. There is a practice. Don't worry about it. There's not many people who are practicing this now. But what I'm saying is a principle in the Vajrayana teaching there is. And those things are, I don't know. If you don't have an ID these days, it's not right? You can get into trouble, isn't it, if you don't have an ID. So you have to have an address, you have to have an ID, birthday. You need to show that you exist. So stuff like this can sometimes, But I have to tell you this. Hindu, Shiva, Tantric. I have to tell you this. This is so inspiring, I have to say. I met this guy. He's English in Bodh Gaya. First, I thought he was one of our Buddhist dharma bum. But then he's a Hindu basically. And we were talking. He's just so good. And we were talking. And finally, I was so inspired. So I gave him a 500 rupee note. And then he said, "Wait." And then he took out some pouch, everything rolled up together. He counted his money. And then he said, something, I forgot the detail. He said, something like, "Do you have 80 rupees? And 80 rupees is difficult to get. So I had to send my monks to find 80 rupees. And finally, he said, "Oh yeah, I'll take 80 rupees." Because he has taken a vow that he will never exceed 100 rupees note. And he has been wandering everywhere. I have to say, few nights, I don't know, joy, a little bit depressed also, that I'm not like him. It's really so touched, it's kind of sad that such things exist. This is year 2000, something like 15. Wow. So it's doable. It's doable. You should not give up. It's just so precious. Do you have more? Okay. When are we finishing? 15 or 30 minutes. Okay. Okay, I think we are about to come to the, with this I'm finishing the Europe, this time the Europe teaching tour. I have to say I've learned a lot, and I have to really, really thank Rigpa to, organize this. I've learned so much. I've learned how much we overlook things. I made a lot of notes. All your questions I've kept. And some of them I'm going to translate this into Tibetan, and I'm going to talk to the Tibetan lamas. I don't know whether they will listen here, who knows, but I will try. It has been really, really, a lot of, awakening for me. And also moved, really, by the students and, Western Dharma students in general. Because, you don't even have, when you grow up, you don't even have one prayer flag next to your home. Let alone any kinds of other Buddhist paraphernalia. And, you are here, this side of the ocean, and, Buddha and Buddhism is the other side. And you have all these science and technology and the democracy and the critical thinking and the New York Times and Guardian and all this. Yet, there's so many people for years relentlessly giving up job. Sometimes, separating from their, lovers, friends, husbands, wives. Relentlessly coming to, and this really, Namkadanya Bisamjin Tamji, we always say, all beings in the, samsara. It's not like Buddha Dharma is sort of exclusive, Tibetans have an exclusive right or Indians have an exclusive right. It doesn't, really. Buddhism has got nothing to do with the Indian or Tibetan culture, even though it has, as I said, there is Tibetan, for necessary. You have to have vehicle, I have, and especially this time, very moved. And this is also, yes, there's been a lot of, very emotional expression, venting maybe in my, Facebook, whatever. And even those, and I'm really saying this from my heart, that fact that they get involved and they express this, it's very, very, I appreciate. And I don't know whether, maybe they didn't do it intentionally, maybe they did it intentionally, but whatever it is, many, many of them have helped, I think, make us aware a lot of this. So I have to really thank all the people who have raised lots of questions and asked many direct questions. This, I want to tell you this. We can't deny the fact that, there have been people who have suffered. People who have written the letters, people who have suffered, whether their suffering is correct or not, whether how their suffering have come, what reason. All of this is something different. But there is a suffering. Of course, everything is an illusion, but, Try to skip your lunch. You will have a hunger, and you can't say hunger is emptiness, emptiness is hunger. You're going, there is going to be pain, and this need to be addressed. There has been pain. This is not like a story or an illusion or some sort, like a movie. And this need to be addressed. Rinpoche has to address this. The Vajra brothers and sisters have to address, and I think they are trying their best, which I also really, that also gave me a lot of encouragement. For instance, like when I went to different centers, as I see the bondage between the, Dharma students, the bonding of the, bonding of the Dharma students, bonding of the Rigpa students, it's priceless. It's so, this is a strength. I'm interpreting this as a strength that Buddha Dharma in general, and especially Vajrayana, will grow. I think we have a good chance. I don't see this as a, I think, give me a lot of encouragement. While we have to address, the fact that there has been suffering, I also don't want to, dampen the devotion and the dedication of Rigpa students who still have so much, spiritual, devotional, and appreciation to Rinpoche, the lineage, and the teaching. If you have done this, as I've been repeating, consciously, and through analysis and all of that, and if you have still practicing this wholeheartedly, or even maybe struggle here and there, but you still don't give up, I rejoice. This is it. This is the way to go. Yes, it's it's not going to be easy in the general world, but this is something. It's I really I rejoice. As I said right from the beginning in Berlin, I've accepted the invitation from Rigpa International, and my first motivation is really try to clarify the Vajrayana. That is, that was my main motivation. Although, some people wasn't that appreciative of this, because I think people expect me to address a specific situation and issues. But, I am raised as a Tulku and Rinpoche, and supposedly sort of the, teacher and the defender of the teaching. So maybe it's a wrong thing, but first thing comes in my mind is, really, the teaching should be alive. If the teaching is alive, the rest will slowly we can fix. This was my attitude. Yes, along the line, due to my lack of, I still, I'm still really wanting to know, although I have passed half a century living on this earth, I still am really wanting to know about West and China and the culture. Really, I am trying. I will tell you, I'm reading Harry Potter and The Golden Compass. Yes, so good. Philip, yeah. And I listen to Guardian podcast. It's good, very good. sometimes a little bit liberal. As I was reading, I found out something so strange, something so funny. I have to share this with you. American President Truman, right? Truman telegrammed to General MacArthur, 1945. Political correctness is a doctrine recently fostered by a delusional, illogical minority and promoted by a sick mainstream media, which holds forth the proposition that it is entirely possible to pick up a piece of shit by the clean end. I had to share this. I don't know. So I'm doing some homework. Don't you think? I think I'm doing some homework. Yes, really, I try to have some, as much good motivation as I can, but my cultural understanding is still not good. My English is not my native language. And yes, as I've said, I do a lot of sweeping generalization. And yes, as someone has written, I'm very opinionated, yes. I accept this. But here and there, probably, at least we have begun to, open some discussion and some thinking process about the Vajrayana philosophy. And you have to really keep in mind, to practice the dharma. If you really define this as it is written in the Buddha Dharma, and if you are looking it from a worldly point of view, then it is the most useless thing to do. Really, really useless. Actually, if it is useful, then you are not practicing the Dharma. Then you are basically, just another, you, in order to build your home, you buy a vacuum machine and you buy a broom and you buy a mixer or whatever. It just happened to be, the meditation, it just happened to be one of those gadgets. In this one, you have to keep in mind, Vajrayana, as I said right in the beginning, has always had challenges, always had, and still have. But funny thing, did you realize, even though it has a lot of challenges and a lot of criticism, it has never stopped people who are challenging this and criticizing this actually sell part of the partial Vajrayana stuff without even giving credit to the Vajrayana. Little bit unfair, I think. Lot of distortion happens. And this is something that, yes, and this is what I've been always telling people. Yes, Tibetan Lamas misbehave, Tibetan Lamas are too much into their culture, Tibetan Lamas try not to understand the Western mind, all of this part, yes, there's a lot of weakness on that. We need to really do something about this. But also in the West, there are a lot of now emerging teachers or whatever, meditation instructor or whatever. And they teach Buddhism, but without even giving credit to Buddha, without even mentioning the words of the Buddha. Just basically from page 1 to page 100 plagiarizing all the Buddhist teachings. That's, ethic? Not really ethical, isn't it? You can't really do this. If you want me to teach how to make sushi, I can sort of, there's a lineage of how to make sushi. So I should teach you this, fish and all of that. There's another way. I eat the sushi, open my stomach, and take out this sushi that's still in the stomach and give it to you. You can't really argue that that's not the sushi. It is, but you're getting something different. So this is what we don't want. Otherwise, Buddhism in the West will become like a Japanese restaurant run by Chinese, or a Mexican restaurant run by American. We don't want this, and it is in our hand. And I really thank you for coming here, diligently, and also a little bit disappointed that I didn't get a chance to do this. Okay, that's it. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Rinpoche. And I think our clapping says it all, but just in a few words, we thank you so much for helping us. As you said, to open up this needed discussion, exploring, questioning, and clarifying. And you have indeed given us so much to think about, to digest, to chew on. So we sincerely thank you for that. And please come back again soon. Thank you, Rinpoche.
The Greek people give me this.